Government debt is the biggest issue in the economy today. Most governments right now, especially the USA, are badly addicted to spending. Debt is no longer a temporary fix, but a permanent feature. But while many leaders have been pulled into debt by circumstances such as COVID and financial crises, Donald Trump has embraced it with open arms.
I'm the king of debt. I'm great with debt. Nobody knows debt better than me.
In 2017, in a meeting with his aides and advisors, Trump said, "Yeah, but I won't be here," when warned about the long-term consequences of his absurd spending. Back then, U.S. federal debt was $21 trillion. Now it has reached $37 trillion, a $16 trillion increase in just 9 years. Trump is willing to mortgage the country's future to serve his political present. America should consider an age limit on the presidency to stop this madness. But how did this all happen? The entire financial system has been built on one thing: confidence. But what if this confidence goes away? For his second term, Trump's spending plans are expected to add $8 trillion to the federal debt by 2035. Trump's addiction to debt is not new. It began long before his presidency. As a businessman, Trump mastered the art of bankruptcy. Now as a politician, Trump shows no care for fiscal restraint. Can you trust a man who has declared bankruptcy 6 times with the world's largest economy?
I mean, I was a businessman doing business.
Trump's debt addiction won't just hurt the USA, it could devastate the entire global economy. Maybe Trump thinks America is too big to fail. Rather, it has become too big to save. The effects of his stupid policies are becoming clearer day by day. U.S. debt now exceeds 120% of total GDP. Annual interest payments on the debt have surpassed $1 trillion. This accounts for almost 20% of annual tax income. Government borrowing costs have also reached their highest level since the 2008 financial crisis. America is no longer the reliable safe haven it once was. Investors are becoming increasingly nervous. Since Trump's return, we have seen a stock market crash and widening cracks in the bond market. On top of this, Trump's trade wars and bizarre foreign policy are causing even more pain. Trump has sacrificed the future of the world for votes. Policies like the Big Beautiful Bill, which include even more tax cuts for the rich while slashing services for the poor, exposes his true colors. In this video, we reveal the Trump political playbook, deliver some short-term relief, shift the blame if anything goes wrong, and focus on style over substance. First, let us rewind a bit. The USA's debt spiral began years ago, but with Trump, it is approaching its final reckoning. To raise the funds it needs, governments issue bonds to investors, promising to repay them with interest on top. Throughout its history, the United States has never defaulted on its debt. Until recently, the mere suggestion of a default was unthinkable. Back in the day, debt was a lot cheaper as interest rates were kept extremely low after the 2008 financial crash. This meant debt was basically free for the government since borrowing costs were so cheap. This was good at the time since the economy was in shambles. Cheap debt allowed governments around the world to stimulate their economies with billions. President Obama's 2009 Recovery Act set aside $831 billion for a whole range of areas like infrastructure, healthcare, education, and even tax cuts, which helped end the recession much quicker. However, even after the economy recovered, governments continued to spend dangerously. This may have been manageable if interest rates had stayed low. But COVID changed everything, triggering a surge in inflation and a sharp rise in interest rates. As a result, servicing debt became much more expensive. Global government debt levels surpassed $100 trillion in 2024 for the first time ever. Governments nowadays borrow their way out of trouble and pay for that debt with more debt. You don't need to be a genius to realize this approach is just a self-destructive spiral. With Trump at the helm, the situation will get a lot worse. Trump's approach to both business and politics is underlined by short-term gains over long-term stability. This mindset makes debt appealing. Trump knows he can fuel the debt as much as he wants and that he doesn't have to live with the consequences. The main issue of an election is almost always the economy.
It's the economy, stupid. Did you ever hear that one?
Trump understands that economic prosperity, or the appearance of it, is the most appealing thing to voters. He also understands that most voters won't feel the impact of rising federal debt immediately. Trump often boasts about stock market performance as a sign of his economic genius, even though it does not reflect the reality facing working-class Americans. The richest 10% of Americans own 93% of the stocks. Trump used the debt-funded tax cuts and stimulus checks to attract working-class voters, helping shift the Republican base away from Wall Street and the suburban middle class. Trump's debt policies contradict traditional Republicans who love balanced budgets and small government. But this isn't an accident. It was a deliberate power move. His policies give him significant power over the Republican Party. This power makes it harder for Republicans to criticize or hold him accountable. Trump can also steer its platform to align with his own views on immigration, trade, foreign policy, and more. Many Republicans who criticized Obama for debt fell silent or suddenly had a change of heart under Trump. They know that criticizing Trump's policies could cost them their seat in Congress. Recently, Trump threatened to expel any House Republicans from the party if they voted against his big, beautiful bill. Only 2 Republicans had the balls to defy Trump. At the same time, Trump is playing the blame game, refusing any responsibility for the debt. He always points fingers at wasteful Democrats or the Federal Reserve for not cutting interest rates. Trump turned a fiscal issue into a political narrative. Trump can claim credit for a booming economy while accusing others of being financially careless. Therefore, his supporters believe the crazy debt isn't Trump's fault and will continue to vote for him no matter what. Tax cuts and stimulus checks may sound good, but not when you are $37 trillion in debt. Trump frequently ignores economic advisors and agencies like the Congressional Budget Office when they warn of the consequences of rising debt. He criticized the Federal Reserve when it raised interest rates, not because it was wrong economically, but because it interfered with the short-term stimulus of cheap money and stock market gains. This just shows the extent to which Trump is willing to sacrifice America's long-term prosperity for his political interests. The danger is that short-term policies become hard to reverse, even after Trump leaves office. Trump's tax cuts, for example, created deficits that future presidents will have to take care of, either by raising taxes or cutting spending. Both are politically painful moves. This means president after president will continue to kick the bucket down the road until the day everything explodes. Short-term thinking in government is especially dangerous because interest costs compound higher and higher. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that annual interest payments on the federal debt will rise from $1 trillion in 2026 to nearly $1.8 trillion in 2035. In the future, economic shocks like COVID will become harder to respond to when debt levels are already high since the government can't spend their way out of trouble like old times. Trump's addiction has supercharged the USA's debt crisis. His reckless spending, obsession with short-term political wins, and disregard for economic consequences have pushed the United States closer to a fiscal cliff. While leaders in the past used debt as a temporary tool in times of crisis, Trump has treated it as a permanent lever of political power with no plans to ever pay the bill. This is more than economic mismanagement, it's generational theft. By prioritizing tax cuts for the rich and other ploys over real fiscal reform, Trump has mortgaged America's future for votes and power. The result? A nation more vulnerable to financial shocks, with a shrinking window to fix what's broken. America's debt spiral can no longer be blamed on random global events and old wars. It now has a figurehead that is Donald Trump. If voters continue to reward this kind of leadership, then the debt isn't just his addiction, it becomes ours. Because in the end, Trump will be gone when the debt bomb explodes. But the rest of us will still be here, left to clean up the mess. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you in the next video.